G'day, welcome to Todd's Kitchen. Sourdough is definitely one of those old-time recipes that everyone loves. It's as old as time itself almost. It is so good, so delicious, so unhealthy. So I'm going to make a different version so you can still enjoy it, but without the carbs. So it tastes pretty much the same, but it's a lot healthier version too. So join me today as I make my version of a keto sourdough. Now we're going to start this off by placing all of our wet ingredients into a mixing bowl. So into a mixing bowl, I'm going to place the egg whites of 6 eggs into a mixing bowl. Now these are 6 large eggs. And honestly, why do they call them egg whites? They're actually yellowish or clearish, which I've always found interesting as a recipe. Why do they call it white when it's actually clear or yellow? Then to those 6 large egg whites, or clears, I'm going to add 2 additional large eggs. So 2 large eggs plus 6 egg whites. And then to that, 3/4 cup of milk, followed by 1/2 cup of warm water. And lastly, 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar. Okay, so next I'm going to place a sifter on top. So we're going to sift some of these ingredients just to get the lumps out. So we're going to use 1.5 cups of almond flour. And as you can see, we're not using a lot, so it's very low in carbs. So I'm going to add 1.5 cups of our almond flour and some coconut flour. And again, per serving, this is also very low in carbs, and all these ingredients are gluten-free as well. 1/2 cup of our coconut flour, and we're going to use some flaxseed meal. Now there's actually 2 different types, but they're basically exactly the same, which is kind of weird, because as you'll see, the golden one is actually better for you carb-wise than the regular one. So as you can see on the golden one, it's 7% carbs compared to the regular one, which is 15% carbs. So it's actually half the amount of carbs, but exactly the same product. Now look at the ingredients, they're exactly the same. The only difference is this one says organic. So honestly, I don't know why. So if you know why the organic golden flaxseed is better than the regular flaxseed for carbs, please let me know in the comments below. So I bought the regular flaxseed just so I can show you the difference. But for this recipe, I'm going to use the golden one, simply because it's lower in carbs, or half the carbs compared to the regular flaxseed. And I'm going to use 1/2 cup of our golden flaxseed meal, a teaspoon of bicarb soda or baking soda, a teaspoon of salt just to enhance all those flavors, and just be sifted through into our wet ingredients until everything is, well, nicely sifted, just so I can get all those lumps out. Plus it also helps combine the dry ingredients at the same time as we're doing it. For our final ingredients, I'm going to add 1/3 cup of silicon husk. Now I didn't put this in with the sieve, simply because it's a thicker texture and it's just not going to go through. What we have to do is with the hand mixer or stand mixer, we're just going to mix this through until everything is well combined. Okay, so we've got our mixture and it's well combined, but I haven't over mixed it. You want to be careful not to do that, otherwise it's too dry. And I've also got a baking tray lined with some non-stick parchment paper. So we're just going to grab our mix, which should be just one big ball. Should be able to just dump it straight on. And we just basically want to shape it into our desired, well, shape. So there's no proofing, no extra kneading. This is very simple. Yeah, it's not the traditional way of making sourdough, but it's just a healthier keto version. So people are saying that's not how you make sourdough. Well, trust me, I know that, but as I said, this is just the healthier, quicker version. Now, if we use the other flaxseed meal, it would have been a slightly darker, which is a bit more traditional, but again, that's up to you. You can use whichever one you want. I'm just going for as few carbs as possible. Okay, so once you've shaped it, we're just going to score it each way like so, and that's it. It really is that simple. So we're going to place this into a preheated oven at 180 degrees Celsius or 350 degrees Fahrenheit for say 35 minutes. It can be up to 40 minutes, just depends on your oven, but basically at 35 minutes we're going to see if it's nice and golden brown on top, and basically when you tap it on top you're going to get like a hollow sound. And you should have a nice firm crust on the outside. And our bread is done. Oh, look at that. It looks fantastic, and I can tell you what, it smells fantastic too. So all we have to do now is just simply place it onto a wire rack to cool down to room temperature. Should take about 30 to 60 minutes. Okay, so it's completely cooled down, and it is a nice thick crust, but still slightly spongy, but it is also a dense bread. So just with a bread knife, just simply cut off your slices. And look how airy, but still thick and delicious this is, and it smells delicious too. So you can cut the slices thin or thick, it's completely up to you. And they toast fantastic as well. So you get that wonderful bread finish. Now you can have it as is, as a sandwich, or you can have it toasted. It works just as well. So as you can see, it is incredibly low in carbs, there's no sugar, and with the added flaxseed, it's actually high in protein because the flaxseed is very protein dense. So it really is a win-win situation. So you have that wonderful sourdough taste, but with about 1/10 of the guilt. It's the healthiest version of sourdough you can have. In moderation, of course. So just make sure you choose the right toppings. And you can also add some seeds to this if you like, it's completely optional. G'day, welcome to Todd's Kitchen. Banana bread has to be one of my most favourite treats of all time. I just love it, but it's also incredibly unhealthy too, unfortunately. But it could just taste so good. So I'm going to make another version, a keto version, a diet-friendly version, in moderation of course, or everything's always in moderation, but this one is going to be just as delicious. So join me today as I make my version of keto banana bread. Now we're going to start this off with our mixing bowl. Now you can use a hand or stand mixer, it's completely up to you. So into a mixing bowl we're going to place in 6 tablespoons or 85 grams of softened butter. Make sure it's soft, otherwise you can break your mixer. And to that half a cup of erythritol or a similar version. It's basically like a watered down version of stevia, but it's perfect for baking. So we're going to place half a cup of our sweetener on top of our butter. And we're going to mix this through on a low to medium speed until it is nice and fluffy. Okay, so once we've mixed through our butter and sugar substitute, next we're going to add 4 eggs. Now we want to do it one at a time. If you do it all at once, it's just going to spoil the mix. So you really need to stagger it by doing one at a time, let it mix through. And once it's mixed through, then we can add the second egg and the third egg and so forth until we use all 4 of our eggs. Now once all of our eggs are mixed through, I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of almond milk. Now make sure it's unsweetened of course, because you don't want any of that sugar. And there is no reason why you can't substitute it for normal cow's milk, but honestly, give almond milk a try because it's actually very, very nice for this recipe. And because we're not using bananas in this recipe, we're going to use some banana flavour. Simply because if we use bananas in this recipe, it's just not going to be keto, so we need to use the flavour instead. So I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of our banana flavour. But of course you don't have to stick to that, you can use more or less, it's completely up to you. Just comes down to personal taste. But you'll find it's very strong, so you really only need about 2 teaspoons just to get that desired flavour. So once that's all mixed through, just simply turn off the mixer and we can start on our dry ingredients. Okay, so first we're going to use some almond flour. So this is very low in carbs. And as you can see, per serving it is so much healthier than flour. So we're going to add in 2 cups of our almond flour. Next we're going to use some coconut flour. And as you can see, it's also low in carbs, a little bit higher than the almond flour, but we're only using a small amount anyway, so it's honestly just negligible. But the point is, it's just so much better than regular flour as well. So we're just going to add a 1/4 cup of our coconut flour. And to help it rise, we're going to use 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Next we're going to add 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. And to enhance the flavour, we're going to add about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Now this is optional, but I highly recommend it because it just helps enhance all those lovely flavours. Now all we have to do is just mix it through until everything is well combined. Okay, so once it's mixed through, this is another optional extra, but I'm going to add 1/2 cup of chopped up walnuts, just for a little bit of texture. So once that's mixed through, it's done. Okay, so I've just got a loaf pan here. I've lined it with some non-stick baking paper, and just make sure you have the overhang. Makes it a lot easier to pull the loaf out when it's done. So just place our keto banana bread recipe into our loaf pan, and we're just going to even it out. And even though we're using banana flavouring instead of actual bananas, it actually smells pretty good already. And at the end of this video, I'll leave clickable or tappable links, I should say, that you can click on for my other delicious keto recipes, as well as my banana bread recipes, where I actually use real bananas. So those ones aren't keto, but I will have a keto playlist as well as my banana playlist for my delicious banana recipes. And of course, please do me a huge favour by checking out the links here, where you'll find me on Facebook and Instagram. But for our final ingredient, and again this is optional, I'm just going to add some more walnuts just on top. Now you can chop them or use them whole like I am, but it just adds a nice little extra flavour and texture. So just push them down into our batter. You can use as many or as little as you like, it's completely up to you. Okay, so what we have to do now is place this into a preheated oven at 180 degrees Celsius or 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're going to initially cook it for 50 minutes, but if you find that it's not ready, we're going to add another 10 minutes to it. And you know it's ready when you stick a skewer in the middle and it comes out clean, but if it comes out a little doughy, then just leave it for another 5 to 10 minutes. Now banana bread is out of the oven, and I've let it cool down on a wire rack, and it looks and smells delicious. And it's come out nice and toasty on top. I love toasted walnuts. And of course, going to cut into this, have a look. And look at that. It looks delicious, doesn't it? It's still dense yet slightly fluffy, which is exactly how you want it, especially for banana bread. You can see those walnuts inside. But honestly, the one main thing it comes down to is the taste. Oh, that is so good. Honestly, it's not dry, it's slightly moist, which is fantastic for banana bread. And it really does taste like banana bread. Yeah, we had to use a flavouring instead of the actual bananas, but as this is a keto recipe, we're trying to make it as healthy as possible and as guilt-free as possible. So honestly, even if you're not on keto, but you're trying to lose some weight, or you're trying to keep your calories down, this is a perfect option. This honestly has to be the healthiest banana bread you'll ever find. G'day, welcome to Todd's Kitchen. In the past I've made keto bread, and I've actually got some more planned as well. But this one is a very quick one, very simple to make, just to whip up just for yourself, and I know that you'll love it. So join me today as I make my version of keto bread in a mug. Okay, so we're going to start off with the obvious, and that's our mug. Now just like my last mug video that I put up yesterday, on the keto chocolate cake in a mug recipe, which I'll leave a link at the end of the video for, my mugs are a lot bigger than the normal mugs. So I'll be upping the amount of ingredients that I'm going to be talking about and listing in the description of this video. So the ingredients I talk about will be the ingredients that you'll need for a normal sized mug. So into a mug, I'm going to place in 1 tablespoon of butter and simply place that into the microwave for about 30 seconds or so, just until it's completely melted. Okay, so next I'm going to use some almond flour. And this is why it's so low in carbs compared to normal flour. And I had a question on my last video, if you have a nut allergy, well you can also use coconut flour. It's just got a slight extra coconut taste to it. And as you can see, it's very low in carbs. So per serving it's 5 grams, but we're not even going to be using that much. So it's going to be a lot smaller. So for this whole bread in a mug, it's probably only going to be about 1 or 2 carbs. Compared to a slice of white bread, which is about 27 up to 35 grams of carbs for one slice. Okay, so as you can see, our butter is completely melted in our fantastic looking mug. So to that I'm going to add 1/3 of a cup of our almond flour, or if you choose, the coconut flour. Then 1 beaten egg. Then half a teaspoon of baking powder, which will help our bread rise nicely. And finally, just to enhance the flavour, just a little bit of salt, just a pinch. And just simply get in there with a teaspoon and give it a very good mix through until everything is well combined. Just try and do it as much as you can just to make sure there's no lumps. So it's definitely a no-knead bread, which is even better. It's just a quick and easy one to do. Just say, let's say like a little piece of bread on the side for dinner, either for yourself or for a couple of people. Okay, and that's it. That's all you have to do. It is that simple. So we're going to place this into the microwave for about 90 seconds. And when you tap it on top and it springs back, that means it's ready. But if it doesn't, put it in there for another 10 seconds at a time until you get to the same effect. Okay, so it's out of the microwave, and I've let it cool down for about 2 minutes because it does come out pretty piping hot. And as you can see, just by touching it, it springs back nicely. Now, some people like to have bread as is, but you should just be able to carefully tip it straight out like so. As you can see, it's still popping hot. And just like normal bread, we can just, with a bread knife, just slice it into some small slices like so. That can be served for any meal. And you can just butter it any way that you like. And it is honestly that simple. It has to be the easiest and quickest bread recipe you will ever make. So it really only took me about just over 2 minutes to prepare and make, and it was ready. One of the best parts is it's incredibly low in carbs and there's no sugar involved. So it's a much healthier version. So it's not only incredibly simple, it's also incredibly fast to make. It's a last minute recipe if you don't have any bread for dinner, and it's also keto friendly. But the best part is, it tastes simply delish. G'day, welcome to Todd's Kitchen. Ever since I started on a keto diet, and mind you, keto diet isn't for everyone, so make sure you talk to a professional first. The one thing I miss most is bread. I love bread. But this recipe is so simple, so easy, it's healthy and keto friendly. So join me today as I show you how to make keto bread. Okay, so we're going to start this off in a mixing bowl. So first thing we're going to add in is 6 eggs. So already we've got plenty of protein for this bread recipe. And then to that, 1 cup of low-fat Greek yogurt, or you can use full fat, makes no difference. The point is it's very low in carbs and sugar. Now this is actually my homemade yogurt that has basically no carbs and no sugar whatsoever. And I'll leave a link at the end of this video on how to make your own, because it's very healthy for you and delicious. And then to that, 1 tablespoon of baking powder. Now with a hand or stand mixer, we're going to mix this up for say about 2 to 3 minutes, just till everything is well combined. Okay, so it's been a couple of minutes and it is perfectly smooth and creamy. Okay, so next, as this is a keto low carb recipe, I'm going to use some almond flour. Now regular plain flour, it's usually over 70% carbs. This one's only 21%. And considering we're only using a small amount in this loaf anyway, the amount of carbs per slice will probably work out to probably 1 to 2 at most, compared to the 20 or 30 grams per slice on regular white bread. So it's a massive difference. So into a mixture, I'm going to place in 1 cup of our almond flour, and lastly 3/4 of a cup of silicon husk. So that's no carbs, but it's a fantastic filler. It's also very healthy too. It's full of fiber, which is fantastic for digestion. So just mix that through until it's combined. And once all the lumps are gone, it's mixed. Now you can have it just as is, but I'm going to add a little bit of extra to it, which is completely optional. And by that, I'm talking about nuts. Now I've got some walnuts and I've got some pistachios. And these are very healthy, and they're also a very good fat to use, especially for a keto diet. You still want those fats, but you want those healthy fats. Now I'm not going to put them in full size, so I'm just going to use a rolling pin and just lightly break them up. So you get to that more seed type consistency, like a multi-grain bread, but with nuts instead. Now being soft nuts, they don't have to be super fine, so they're not going to break your teeth or anything like that. They're not those hard nuts. So I'm just going to add in our pistachios and our crushed up walnuts. And we'll simply mix it through just for a couple of seconds until it's just combined. And that's it, we're done. Okay, so I've just got a loaf pan that I've lined with some non-stick parchment paper. So we just simply place that mixture into our loaf pan. So we're just going to even it all out. And as an optional extra, I like to sprinkle on some chia seeds on top. They're full of fiber, omega-3, and they're just outright healthy for you. So you don't need too much, just enough to cover the top. So we're just going to slightly push them down just so they stick. And it also makes it look a lot better on top too. So the reason we're only putting them on the top and not mixing them in the loaf as well is because they work the same as silicone husk, where they draw in the moisture. So if you put the silicone husk in with the seeds, you're going to come out with a very dry loaf. So only place them on top of the loaf, not in the loaf. Okay, so lastly we're going to place it into a preheated oven at 180 degrees Celsius or 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 55 minutes. So after 55 minutes, we're going to place a skewer inside the loaf. And if the skewer comes out clean, it's ready. If not, but if it comes out a little moist, just leave it in there for another 2 to 3 minutes at a time until the skewer comes out clean. Okay, so it's finished baking. So with a wooden skewer, I'm just going to insert it into the center. I'm going to pull it out. See how it's all nice and clean, there's no residue left on it? That means it's done. Okay, so what we have to do now is just simply take it out of our oven. Okay, so we're just going to carefully pull it out of our loaf tray. Onto our wire rack, and we're just going to let that cool away for about 1 to 2 hours and it's ready to serve. But of course, if you want to serve it in half an hour where it's still nice and warm, that's up to you, where you get that nice melted butter feel. Okay, so our bread is completely cooled down. Now all we have to do is just, with a bread knife, we're just going to slice right into it. And just look at the lovely texture. It is cooked perfectly. It feels fantastic, just like normal bread. Well, it is bread, but much lower in carbs. Basically no carbs per slice, no sugar, and it's incredibly healthy too. Now you can use a more narrow loaf pan if you choose, so you can get some more height, or you can increase the ingredients, but just keep an eye on that cooking time. So this really is a fantastic recipe to make at home. It's basically a guilt-free bread. So I like to toast mine, And I like to add cheese, real cheese of course, and some ham. Cheese and ham taste fantastic. And it's also keto friendly too. And with all those healthy nuts inside and the chia seeds on top, it really does take it up to the next level. G'day, welcome to Todd's Kitchen. I've already made 2 keto bread recipes. The first one being full of nuts and seeds, which makes it healthy, but it gives you all of those good fats that we all love and enjoy. Second one being keto bread in a mug. Literally took just about 2 minutes to prepare, and it was super simple and tasty. This one's a lot different. This one's basically just plain white bread, but it only has up to 1 gram of carbs per slice, as opposed to about 30 for normal white bread. And this is the first of 2 that I'm doing in a row. I'm doing another one tomorrow, which is a more traditional keto bread, but it's a delicious one, which I know that you'll love. And I'll leave a link of that video at the end of this video. So if it's live by the time you watch this video, it'll be at the end of this video, so stay tuned. Plus I'll leave a link to all my lovely keto recipes at the end of this video. So join me today as I make my version of a white sliced keto bread. Okay, so we're going to start this off with some eggs. Now I've got 7 large eggs, so I'm going to place those into a bowl. Now, one of 2 steps to make sure that this bread doesn't taste or smell like egg when it's done. This being the first one is make sure the eggs are at room temperature. And that's very important. If they're going cold, that's just 1 step closer to having a bread that honestly smells and tastes like egg. And I've made the mistake before while testing out this recipe. So as long as it's at room temperature, you'll be just fine. And with a hand or stand mixer, just simply mix the eggs up on high for about 2 minutes until they're completely combined. Okay, so once we've beaten our eggs through, next I'm going to add some melted butter. Now I've melted this in the microwave, and this is half a cup's worth, and just make sure it's not hot or too warm, because you don't want to cook the eggs at the same time. And I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of coconut oil. And as always, I'll leave a list of the ingredients in the description of this video. And just simply mix that through for another minute or so just till it's well combined. Okay, the next thing we're going to add are 2 cups worth of almond flour. So for the amount we're using, they're basically carb free, as well as basically sugar free compared to normal flour. So this is 100% almond flour. So I'm going to add 2 cups worth of that to our bowl. And then I'm going to add a teaspoon of baking powder. And this will just help everything rise nicely. So it's basically taking the place of the yeast that you'd use in normal bread. And for our final ingredient, we're going to use some xanthan gum. Now this is also a gluten-free product, and this works as like a combiner. So if you don't use it, basically when you go to slice up your bread, it's going to crumble and fall apart. This is what helps combine it and keep it all together. So without it, this keto bread will just simply fall apart when you go to slice it. And as you can see, it doesn't have any of the extra crap that doesn't matter. Basically no calories, no carbs, no sugars. It just does as it says. Now it's pretty easy to find in most health food stores, but if you're not sure, just Google it for your local area. So I just need half a teaspoon worth. You don't need much. So 1 packet does last a long time. And lastly, this is bread, so we do want to add a little bit of salt just to enhance the flavor. So now it really is just a very simple matter of mixing it through until it's well combined. Okay, lastly I've just got a loaf pan here and I've lined it with some non-stick parchment paper. So just simply, with a spatula, just place your mix into your loaf pan. Now you definitely don't want to do this by hand because it is very sticky. It's not your usual bread. It's more of like a cake batter consistency. But trust me, in the end, it's going to work out. So just simply spread it out, just so it's relatively even. And with the baking paper, just make sure you've got this overhang here. Makes it easy just to pull it straight out once it's done. Because that will be the second secret of having that no egg taste to this bread. Basically, once it's done, we're going to stick a skewer on the inside. If it comes out clean, it's ready. But as soon as it's ready, we're going to take it out and put it on a wire rack to cool down. We don't want to keep on cooking. So the faster it cools down, the less egg taste there will be. So by following the 2 steps of having warm eggs or room temperature eggs, and the fact that it's going to cool down very fast, you don't taste the eggs at all. And the first time I tried this, when I experimented, I made both mistakes and, well, yeah, I didn't finish it. But then I did it again with the warm eggs and letting it cool down pretty fast. I'd even recommend putting it in the fridge. You get 0 egg taste whatsoever. Okay, so we're going to place this into a preheated oven at 180 degrees Celsius or 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 45 minutes. And at the 45-minute mark, we're going to put a skewer on the inside. If it comes out clean, it's ready. Okay, so you've got to keep in mind, not all ovens are the same, so it can vary by up to 10 minutes. And as you can see, it's started to split on top, plus it's also dried up on the top. And I've just done a test, but I'll do it again just for the camera. And I'm pulling it out, and as you can see, the skewer is nice and clean. That means it's ready. So at this point, all you have to do is just take it straight out of the oven. And as I said before, the second stage to make sure you don't have that egg taste is to take it straight out. And we're going to just place it onto this wire rack. So we'll just take away the baking paper, just slide it off, and that will cool down a lot faster this way. Just get rid of these little bits on the side. So that'll cool down straight away. And then you won't have that egg taste, but you'll have a nice fluffy keto bread. Okay, so I've had it cooling down for about an hour or so now. So all you have to do is just slice into it with a regular bread knife. Now, for regular size, regular thin slice type slices, you're looking at about 1 gram of carbs per slice. And considering you're looking at about 30 grams of carbs per slice of regular store-bought white bread, going down to 1 gram with no sugar, it's a massive difference. So even if you're not on a keto diet, it makes no difference because this is an incredibly healthy bread to have. You can toast it, you can have it as is. Here in Australia, you can have Vegemite, or if you're in America, peanut butter and jelly, completely up to you. Or you can even have it by itself. And that is delicious. There's 0 egg taste. G'day, welcome to Todd's Kitchen. As promised yesterday, I'm making a second keto bread recipe. This will make my 4th in total. This one's so simple, so easy, so delicious. There's probably about 5 different versions out there that I've seen, but this is my favorite. So join me today as I make my version of soul bread. Okay, so we're going to start off with a mixing bowl, and our first ingredient is going to be some softened cream cheese. So altogether, I've got 340 grams or 12 ounces of softened cream cheese. And when I say softened, I've just let it sit at room temperature for about half an hour. And then to that, I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of melted butter, and a 1/4 cup of olive oil, a 1/4 cup of whipping cream or heavy cream, or even double cream will do. And then just a little bit of salt. This just helps enhance some flavors. And for a bit of sweetness, a pinch of stevia. But you can use a different type of sweetener if you choose. So we're going to mix this on low at first until everything is just combined. And then we're going to mix it up a little bit faster, just until we have no lumps left from the cream cheese. Okay, so it's been mixing through for about 2 minutes now. So I've got 4 eggs here, so I've already slightly beaten them. So we're just going to slowly add that to the mixture. Just turn it down a little bit, just so you don't splash yourself. So don't add it all at once, just slowly drip feed your beaten eggs into our cream cheese mixture. Just until it's completely incorporated. And we're just going to keep on mixing for another 2 to 3 minutes, just to be on the safe side, just so there's no lumps and everything is well combined. Okay, so look at that. It is nice and smooth and not a single lump in sight. It is perfect. Okay, so now for our first dry ingredient, and we're going to use some unflavored protein powder. Make sure there's no vanilla or chocolate. We want a neutral flavor, because just like normal bread, you want to mix it with, say, whatever type of topping that you like, and you don't want that distracting from the taste. All the dry ingredients we're about to use, we need to sift them all together, just so we get a nice smooth consistency. So first of all, I'm going to add 1 2/3 of a cup of our unflavored protein powder. And keeping with the keto theme, make sure there's no carbs or sugars added to the protein powder, so we just get 100% pure protein, which makes this recipe even better. So there's not only no carbs or sugar in this bread, you're also getting a great source of protein in every slice. And just like our last recipe, we're going to use some xanthan gum, and this will stop the bread from falling apart when we cut it. It's a fantastic combining agent, otherwise bread just crumbles away. So we only need to add 1 teaspoon of our xanthan gum. Next we're going to use some cream of tartar, and we only need 1/4 teaspoon worth. And of course we need some baking powder to help arise. So just add 2.5 teaspoons of our baking powder to our mixture. Next we're going to add some bicarb soda, also called baking soda, and 1/3 teaspoon is more than enough. Now just simply sift through all the ingredients until we get rid of every single lump and we have a lovely smooth lump-free consistency. Okay, so at this point I've ditched the stand mixer, and you don't even want to use a hand mixer. You just want to use a spoon or a spatula and just fold the mixture through. Don't overdo it, just fold it through carefully. If you overdo it, you're going to get a very dense bread and it won't be as fluffy. So take your time, fold it through until everything is well combined. And last, I've got a baking pan here that I've lined with some non-stick parchment paper, and you'll notice that I've got some overhang. So we're just simply going to place all of our mixture into our loaf pan. And now it's ready for the oven. Now there are a few more ingredients and steps compared to my last keto type breads, but trust me, it is worth it. Now that all that's left is to place it into a preheated oven at 160 degrees Celsius or 325 degrees Fahrenheit for 45 minutes. Okay, so it's just finished baking. So we're going to give it the old stick test. So I've got a wooden skewer. Just place it in the center, pull it out, and see how it's come out clean? That means it's ready. So at this point, just take it straight out of the oven. Okay, so I love how it's just lightly brown on top, and see you can sort of just touch it, it sort of springs back. You don't want to overdo it while it's cooling. So we're just going to carefully take it out of our baking tray and put it onto a wire rack. Just pull that aside. Okay, so at this stage, don't cut into it. You want to let it set, let it cool down completely for at least 60 minutes. And after 60 minutes, you can start cutting in, slicing, dicing, and making sandwiches with our delicious soul bread. Okay, so our soul bread, keto bread, protein bread, whichever one you want to call it, has cooled down completely. So just with a bread knife, we can just cut off our desired slices. And just look at that. Look how spongy that is. That is a fantastic slice of keto bread or soul bread. So many names, but a lovely bread all the same. And just like all bread, it can be toasted. You can have it as is. So you don't have to choose the healthy option on whatever you want to put on it. You can put whatever you want on it. The point is, the bread itself is the healthy part. So it really does cut down on all those calories. Plus it gives you that added protein without all the carbs and sugars. But personally for me, I love to add some ham and cheese. It really does go down well. With real butter, of course. So again, it's not the only soul recipe out there. There are plenty of others. This just happens to be one of the best ones for the most protein with the least amount of carbs and sugar. But using a cream cheese and the protein powder as the base, no matter what topping you use, it's going to taste simply delish.